Incremental greetings. While recording a video how to, I just did an example that I never tried, and it was so juicy that I talked for too long. So here's the video. What you see here, left and right, is my repetition graph from my close deletion type, items, and everything else, that is question and answer. And you may have seen, hey, there's a difference here. So let's analyze it. So the non-lapsed element, the non-lapsed items, it goes to a huge interval of 500 days, more or less, and then it goes down and up again. How may I explain that? The number of repetitions. That means that perhaps is what they are coming to my repetitions now, and I'm lapsing those. That means that there are more items have not been lapsed yet, but they are outstanding, waiting for me to do the repetition. But once I do the repetition, I forgot, then I lapsed. It just happened that I haven't done all of them because of information overload. And then at the same time, I'm making new items that could be really easy and are skewing this result. So what's more meaningful are all of the other. Look at this. The yellow one lapsed, or the two lapses, the white, are very similar. Even the three lapses, the blue, is somewhat in the same direction. Slightly difference in the with low repetition count, 3 or 4, has a higher interval, which makes sense because I have done more repetitions on those, and I lapsed twice. So at the very least, I have seen 3 times that element. You see, I lapsed this in the past, but now that I see it for the 3rd time, now I have improved my recall on that. And for lapses, I don't know if it's there, I cannot see it. So more or less that's the observation from my own data. And you know that in SuperMemo, the first repetition is when you create item via close deletion. If you notice, there's no stat for the first one. It only starts on the second, because the second repetition is the first that is genuine. It's done during the repetition time by the user, not when it is created. You cannot create a flashcard. You cannot create an item that is already lapsed. You will lapse it the first manual repetition. And how cool is that? Is that you could filter this by concept. So I did imports, that is, let's say that what is not been classified, there's some meaningful, could be, let's say about learning and cognition. That's a topic of my interest. Let's see what happens. Right click, tools, but wait, I don't have tools here. For whatever reason, it is only on in this version. Repetition graph, no errors. That's super cool. Also, this looks like flattened, but this can be deceiving because of the scale. The scale is exponential. So 500 could be 600, and it will be almost no increase visually here, because the next is already 1000. So keep that in mind. Look at this. In this concept, the items in this concept is that with a few repetitions, let's say here, with only keep in mind that we have to subtract 1, that is the automatic. So if I only do 4 repetitions, manual repetitions, I already, by average, have the interval in 1.5 years, more or less, in 500 days. With 4 repetitions, it's in 1.5 years. I could achieve the same with 1 lapse, but look at this. I needed 9 repetitions to get to the same interval, which makes sense because those 9 contain the 4 that I did before. So it can only increase. So the best case scenario would be just 1 extra repetition, that after the lapse, you could send that to the 1.5 years already. And what I see with the lapses, with 3 lapses, is that I'm assuming lack of data. That it's too weird, the behavior. I think it depends a lot on the elements. How many elements have been lapsed 3 times in this concept? Let's find this out. 3 times. Okay. Yeah, just 10. So the graph is almost meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. You could do this by concept, group, or anything in particular. So now I could search by close deletion, for instance. So hey, I want to see how are my lapses for the type of card, regardless of the content, the concept, when I created those. So now I know, because I use plain text, those are close deletions at this moment, at the very least. Because sometimes I could rephrase a close deletion to a question and answer, so therefore this will be filtered already. It's a limitation, so let's say that now I change it, this very same card, so the 6th repetition would be in question and answer format. But the performance before was through close deletion. So I can only know the current state. But it's good enough, it's good enough. So let's see what happens with close deletions. Okay, so I suppose that I haven't had enough time to do the 6th repetition on non-lapsed elements, because their intervals are so long that I need to wait 5 or 6 years for this repetition to come, to become outstanding. And then I have lapsed 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's something that we can compare. This is close deletion. I will make the screenshot. I will save this. Those are the close deletions. Okay. And now I want all of the items that are not close deletions. I don't necessarily questions. I could search for the question mark, but they have some that there are no question marks, like this one. So it will be a lot easier to subtract the subset. So for the remaining, it's almost 50-50, the ratio. So now if I do the repetitions graph for the non-close deletions, it's like this. And this looks a lot different. By the way, this is the first time I do it, comparing those. That's genuine. Here you go. Look at that. The first, second, third, and up to 4th until here. It looks the same. Then the 5th, this is it's more flat. It increases, but not as much as here. But here stops. And here it continues. How come? So that means that I don't have close deletion items that I didn't lapse ever, and I did more than 6 repetitions. Why? First, because I didn't lapse them. Therefore, the interval has increased every single time, to the point that I only have used SuperMemo for 4 years. So I haven't had enough time to do more than 7 reps. And usually what happens with close deletions is that are lazy items. So it's more, if I do it now, like this selection that I did now, I filtered the lazy close deletions that at the first repetition, I convert to question and answer. It's the current state of the collection. So therefore, most of the close deletions that I have now is very likely they will have a tendency to have a lower priority, therefore being left outstanding. It's been some years that I don't finish my outstanding queue. And my priority protection for items hardly goes above 10%. So it makes sense that those are being ignored. I didn't rep them. But at the same time, it's not true for the other ones when it's not a close deletion, because there's a tendency to be a higher priority. Higher priority will also mean that the interval doesn't go crazy high to the future. And especially if I did this successfully. As I said, they're outstanding. Let's say that it has been outstanding for a year. So the interval was already some years, but I was late for an extra year. I need to do a successful recall. Therefore, I don't lapse that, so it doesn't go to the yellow, stays on the red. That means that the next interval will be 10, 15 years. So it will be extremely hard for me to do 8 and 9 repetitions on those elements and not lapsing them. And I see another meaningful difference. The lapse 4, it looks weird and different, but I know that the quantity is very low, so it depends a lot on the size of the selection. And the other is they are quite similar. So that this finding has been the non-lapsed. How cool is that? A feature that I never bothered. Let me know if you run this in your own collection, if you have some other findings, because I'm limited to my own collection. So if you never use close deletions, or it's very rare, and you do this comparison, do you have something else? Can now with AI, what I do is that now, even if they're high priority, I'm more inclined to use question and answer instead of close deletion. So I use the close deletion for the sake of creating the element. But the first repetition, or right away, I will reformulate it. So I think this will change in the future. Since I can filter by date within close deletion, in some years or next year, I will be able to check that. If it's worth sharing, I will do it. Follow-up video. Nothing more to add today, and see you incrementally.